The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark Kelly and welcome to the Alldus ServiceNow podcast series, and we are live at the Guinness Enterprise Centre. Today I've got Paul Turley, Senior Director of ServiceNow Ireland. Paul, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
It's great to be here, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Paul, before we jump into the whole world of ServiceNow, tell me what it's like before you got into ServiceNow. Tell me about some of the experiences that shaped you, as an individual.
Well, I suppose the first thing, from early as a kid, I always loved selling things, working in shops, etc., as a kid. So that was kind of what I knew I always wanted to do. I ended up studying engineering in UCD, which was great. I wanted to be a lawyer actually, so selling and law, it doesn't really add up. But anyway, I didn't do that, so I did engineering, which was a great way of, I always say to, if I'm talking to kids nowadays, it's just a way of training your mind to think. And that was great, so I did that. And then I was lucky enough to get on the Enterprise Ireland graduate program, which is 2 years, and they send you to different parts of the world. So I was sent to Copenhagen in Denmark, where I know you've spent some time as well. So great city, spent 2 years there working with, back in the late 90s, with a lot of Irish startup software companies, so the Baltimore Technologies of the world, the Flexicoms, the Ionas. And my job there as a grad was to help them establish routes to market in Scandinavia. Distributors, resellers, set up meetings for them. So very much, cold calling, setting up meetings, all that stuff. So a great grounding in technology and also sales. And then from there I went to Baltimore Technologies, and then from there to Hewlett-Packard, where I ran the Irish software business for a number of years. And then ServiceNow for the last just 3 and a bit years. So that's been the journey.
I could have a separate podcast on the EI piece with the founders, right? But thinking of yourself as a youngster, you've got that engineering underlying understanding of kind of how systems work and problem solving. And then you've got the ability to sell, or trying to sell, I'm guessing, that side. Did any of those co-founders or founders influence you in terms of how they interacted with you and how they kind of really started up and really get their idea out there and try to build a plane while fly the plane? Because I would have thought it was kind of very, very fast paced, particularly trying to get into those emerging markets.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the one that stands out is Fran Rooney, and Lord rest him, he died a couple of months ago. Fran was an amazing visionary. He had, Bill McDermott talks about dream big and follow your dreams and just go do it. But Fran was the epitome of that back in 1999. He was, started off as a post office clerk, got into this technology, befriended Michael Purser in Trinity College, who had invented this public key infrastructure thing, cryptography, digital signatures. I mean, this was before we digitally sign everything nowadays, but back then, digital signatures? I mean, what about non-repudiation? What about somebody making up? So Fran was an unbelievable visionary, and he sent us, we were a gang of people in our 20s, and we basically we went around the world. The great story that's been told many times was the big RSA conference in the US, and we were like 30 people, but Fran wanted us to appear bigger. So he said, right, we're going to have a party. So he rented out this pool hall in San Francisco, and every one of us was instructed to max out our duty-free allowance so that we could have as much alcohol in the place as possible. And everybody at the RSA conference went to the Baltimore party, and that was the moment. So he was a huge influence on me for those 4 years I was with Baltimore, and really, I think taught us all that we can do great things, even as a small little startup in Dublin.
I was surprised when Bill McDermott left SAP and joined ServiceNow. And I saw Bill the year before at Gartner at ringside seats, and he was speaking. And I was thinking, this guy really, really knows his stuff. But then when he joined ServiceNow, I was like, what is this whole ServiceNow gig? But I'm guessing he is being a pretty big visionary to be kind of working beside and seeing his ambitions, because when he talks about ServiceNow and where they want to go, you can't help but be excited on this journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bill's, and he talks about this himself, his epiphany moment on ServiceNow was SAP was a big ServiceNow customer, and still is. And he still talks about this 20th century architecture that runs most large businesses today, where on average people have to spend go into 16 or 17 different systems on a daily basis just to do their job, wasting about 35% of their time. So that toil can be eliminated. And that's the vision of Fred Luddy 20 years ago, the founder of ServiceNow, was to have a platform, quite simply, to make work flow more effectively through large organizations. Now, it just so happened that we started in the IT world because that's where the first venture capital money was for him, and the company went public on that. But now, and accelerated by the pandemic, this opportunity to make work flow across organizations, not in silos, but across. So everybody has a CRM, everybody has a finance system, everybody has a HR system. But now what ServiceNow is becoming is that umbrella over the top of all of these legacy systems. Don't replace them, just make them work more effectively together and give people, employees, citizens, customers, you name it, a better experience.
So I've spent a little bit of time with the team at ServiceNow on the federal use cases across government municipalities. I've been very, very impressed by that. Is there any particular use cases that you see with customers in Ireland or even abroad that are particularly interesting to you in terms of impact?
I think there are lots. But I mean, if you look at the average day in the life of an employee, be it a civil servant, as I said, or an employee in a large enterprise or a customer, even stuff like forms. I mean, I know it sounds obvious, but forms get downloaded, completed, and then they typically touch multiple systems. You look at somebody new joining a company, a joiner. Everybody thinks that's a HR process. It's not a HR process. It's an IT process. It's a finance process to get paid. It's a HR process, obviously. It sometimes is a health and safety training process. A new joiner needs to do all of these things, but everybody looks on it as a HR process. Yeah. So making that journey for a new employee seamless so that they have on day one, and maybe beforehand, everything they need to do their job effectively, all of the training lined up, their buddies assigned, their desks, their IT equipment, their access rights, their HR, everything that they need. That's just one example of making it easier. And the brand building that does for companies, and the loyalty it brings to employees to say, I'm working for a proper operation. I'm not working for a Mickey Mouse operation.
And it's funny, when I interviewed the team at SAB, they talked about the difference between having a person effectively onboarded and who's not. So that could be differences. Paul jumps into an MS Teams call with the team, high five at the end of it, he's pumped. Mark's doing documentation on the side, both colleagues. By Wednesday, I get my laptop, maybe the security codes aren't working. It could be Thursday before I'm properly onboarded. There's a significant chance I'm going to churn in the next 6 months because, like my first day at school, it wasn't an effective, really, really nice experience. So that discretionary effort's an awful lot less likely to happen because you feel so kind of undone with that process and it isn't kind of frictionless. So I'm really kind of bought into that onboarding aspect. From an agentic AI perspective, we're seeing people really talking about these words and where it's going to go and the opportunities of the different use cases. With all the different acquisitions ServiceNow have had over the last 6, 7, 8 years, and they continue to do so, it feels like ServiceNow is in a nice position to take advantage of this in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I try and simplify this. AI, so we first started investing in AI companies 7 years ago because AI is not generative AI. People get confused sometimes. Generative AI is the new paradigm, and that's fine. But I see this just as an evolution of what we do. So our purpose is to make the world of work better, right? So what does that mean? It just means taking away, as I said earlier, the toil of people's lives at work. Generative AI is just the next evolution of that, and agentic AI is going to be the next evolution of that. But if you look at some of the use cases that we've brought to market around generative AI, it's not rocket science, right? If you're an agent, a customer service agent or an IT agent or a HR agent in a large company, and you take on a case that's been worked on by somebody else, and there's 3 or 4 pages of case notes, right? Why have to read all the case notes? Why can't you just summarize them? Case summarization. That's generative AI. In platform, ServiceNow can do that. As an end user, why can't I get a summary of knowledge articles that have been written, videos, given to me in a nice, succinct way that gives me the salient points on how to solve my problem now, quickly, without toil? And similarly, the other part of this, and anybody who's familiar with ServiceNow knows that with our growth has brought huge demand for skills. And I know you've done a lot of work in this area, Mark, but the skills are scarce. Skills across every industry are scarce, especially here in Ireland. So the ability to use some of this new technology to allow our customers and our partners do more faster, deliver value faster, is a key component of what we're doing around generative AI. But it's an evolution, and we've built it into the platform. The use cases are simple, they're ready to go, and our customers are seeing huge value. It's the fastest growing product in our history.
So the ServiceNow, like every time I look at the quarterly results and Bill talking about it, you can't help but get excited. But from an Irish perspective, the ServiceNow office in Ireland, I can't help but get excited about your own journey and growth. And what I've been most impressed with, you haven't necessarily tried to reinvent the wheel. You've been very careful about trying to figure out from different locations like New Zealand, what worked, what doesn't work, and then trying to build that culture. Tell us a little bit about the Irish story.
So the Irish story is a great one. I mean, the first thing to say is, I think on last count we have 33 different nationalities in the office in Dawson Street, which we moved into earlier this year. So the journey in Dublin started in a small little Regis office down in Sir John Rogerson's Quay with 12 people, mainly developers. Our legal counsel for EMEA, Jodie Hannon, tells a funny story where she came in as the lawyer, and everybody was sitting around a table, probably not much bigger than this, with headphones on. They took them off briefly and said, "Who are you?" And she said, "Lawyer." They put their headphones back on again. But that's where it started, and we're now north of 550 people with plans to grow, as has been said in the press, with the IDA and all the great people there. So yeah, and then three years ago we've built our go-to-market team in Ireland, which is the team that I lead, and that's really about bringing, as you say, what we're seeing in other, let's call it small countries. We're only 5.5 million people, so the Denmarks, the New Zealands, the Norways, the Finlands, the Austrias. What have we learned from how ServiceNow has transformed public and private public services and private sector enterprises there, and bringing that back to our customers here in Ireland as innovative ideas? You can do this, because certainly we see in the public sector, the health sector, the opportunities to use new technology to drive better patient outcomes in health, better physicians and the staff, better staff outcomes is enormous. There's still too much toil out there that we can help eliminate. So that's been the story in Ireland. Again, it's an evolution. We're trying to learn from what's worked elsewhere and bringing those ideas back into Ireland and putting our customers together with some of the great customers that are out there.
And just last year, we became a partner in the ServiceNow Partner Program, and we've been kind of learning as we go as well. What advice would you offer to partners in the Partner Program that to work effectively with yourselves? Because so much collaboration seems to be at the heart of what you do. Is there any advice you'd share?
I think one of the challenges with ServiceNow is we're moving so fast and growing so fast and innovating so fast is the challenge to keep up with all of that. And that's not just a challenge for partners, it's a challenge for our staff and colleagues. So I would say, and I say this all the time, stay unbelievably curious about what we're doing. Learn as best you can in terms of what we're doing and bring that innovation to the market. Because a lot of the innovation we're driving is customer led. So we're seeing customers do really innovative ideas. I mean, most recently, finance. Everybody's doing finance transformations. These are these big 3, 4, 5 year transformations. They take a long time. They cost a lot of money. But there are so many simple use cases around accounts payable, accounts receivable, procurement, supply chain, that are workflows that touch multiple parts of the business that can be automated really, really quickly. So speed is really important. We need to deliver value fast. 6, 8, 10, 12-week projects, deliver value, prove the value, get that agreed and signed off, and then move on. So speed, curiosity, and being the best that you can be with the platform, I'd say would be my advice.
Paul Turley, Senior Director of ServiceNow Ireland, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.